everyone, welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I'm your host, Steve Rozenberg, and this is where we talk about real business, real life, and real situations. Look, the reason I wanted to start this show is that I realize when you start a business and when you're trying to grow, there is no one there to guide you and help you when you're doing things right, and more importantly, when you're doing things wrong. Many people start a business on their own, and they have to wear many, many hats. Now, when I was building my business, I was very fortunate that I had a business partner. And at first, I wasn't really sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing because we were almost polar opposites. I was this pie-in-the-sky dreamer, and he was this pessimistic, realist person. I say pessimistic, I joke. But that's what I would always say. And he would say, Steve, like, your head's in the clouds. You're not even realistic. And I would go, man, you're bringing me down. Like, just get your shit together. Like, let's move. But what was interesting is we always found our equilibrium right in the middle. And we created such a great synergy about how to build a business because I did what I did great and he did what he did great. And we realized as our business matured is we didn't overlap at all. I mean, we literally had things that we always did very well, and they were complementary to each other. They were not contradicting. As we built our business, we read a book by a gentleman named Gino Wickman, which is called Traction. Now, in this book, Traction, we learned that there's a name for us. There's called the Visionary and the Integrator. And we started reading this book, and we're like, holy crap, this is us. This is exactly who we are. So there's a second book out. It's called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel explains the relationship between this visionary and this integrator. And what we started to realize is that if we could actually grow our roles and focus on what we are good at, man, we could explode our business because we could focus on what we're good at, and we can not focus on what we're bad at and either offload that to each other, or we could basically outsource it, automate it, something, but I didn't need to do it. For example, in our business, I was the visionary. I was the one who was basically the face of the company. I was always the one that was out there talking about the company, speaking on stages, on podcast shows. I had a radio show. I even toured throughout Australia, and I was the face of the company. Now, I was always very, very adamant about giving my business partner, Pete, credit because I said, look, I'm not the one that's building this business. Pete is the guy who's actually doing all the work. I'm the face of it, but he's actually the realistic guy who's doing the work. Pete was the integrator. And so the integrator is the person that likes to basically take chaos and turn it into control. And so he does that by systemizing it, by automating it, by understanding what metrics can tell you what is good and what is not so good. And you start to realize what you're good at and what the company is good at. And as we started getting these roles of visionary and integrator, we started realizing, man, we're really good at this. We're not so good in this. And we would delegate. Now, one of the things we realized is that we had a lot of people asking us all the time, like, how are you guys doing this? And one thing I will advise you if you have a business partner, you've got to make sure that you stay in your lane. Meaning, whatever you do. Do not cross over in the other person's department on an operational level. If you look at all successful businesses in the past history, the majority of them have a visionary and an integrator. Disneyland with the two brothers had that. You got Southwest Airlines. You've got Ford Motor Company. All of them all had a visionary and an integrator because that's the yin and yang of a business. And so remember, the visionary is the one who creates culture. They create client relationships. They look at big picture. They have ideas all the time that they bring to the team. The integrator is the one who says, yes, no, I think we have something here. My business partner, Pete, used to always say, hey, Steve, you know what? You come up with 10 ideas a day. 9 of them suck. But you know what, though? One of them is the moneymaker. And he said, it's my job to basically figure out which one that is and run with it and make it a reality. So I was great at coming up with ideas, not so great at the implementation of how to do it. And that's why the integrator is so valuable. Now, if the business was just a visionary and you are this big picture person making relationships, there would be no structure on your business. And basically your business would grow to implosion. So the business would implode because you don't know what you're doing and there's no systemization, there's no automation, there's nothing to help it structure to basically sustain the growth. Now, as an airline pilot, I have a special skill set of understanding structure and systemization by being a pilot. So I had a different view and understood, and I respected that side of the company because that's what we do in the cockpit when we're flying. Now, if it's a visionary, it will implode because of too much growth. However, if the business is only an integrator, the integrator is the one who doesn't want to do anything. They want to make sure the systems are perfect before they launch. They want to make it so that there's no flaws, no glitches, no issues. And if there is, they don't launch the system because it's not perfect. So the challenge with an integrator is they would go out of business because they would have no inbound business. And so that's something you really want to think about, of having that balance. And more importantly, you have to make sure that the visionary and the integrator respect the balance. You've got to make sure that you respect what each other are saying and what each other are doing to really, truly have that skill of growing the business, because it takes both of you. You can't, one is not going to do it, the other one's not going to do it. You've got to both do it. So I get a lot of questions of people that have asked me, how do you do the visionary integrator and how did we do it? So I'm going to answer some questions. First one is can the visionary and integrator be the same person? Well, yes, they can be the same person, but here's the thing. When you look at the DISC profile is a personality profiling system. And you have a D and an I, and you have an S and a C. And the way those are broken down is the D and the I are more extroverted, and the S and the C are more introverted. Statistically, the integrator is going to be a little bit more C with S, or C with D, and the visionary is going to be D with I. Right? So typically you're not going to have someone that actually hits all those buttons and does them well. So could they be the same person? Yes, but you're going to be, if you're doing all those roles, you're not going to do them all well. And there's going to be some things that you probably should not be doing. So that's the first thing with visionary and integrator. And could they be the same person? The next one is the CEO the visionary or the integrator? I would say the CEO is probably going to be the integrator, because the CEO is the one who's working in the business. They're doing all the operations. As your business grows, you can have a COO, so someone who's a C-level that's in charge of operations, and then they would be the integrator. The CEO typically is going to be the person out in front. They're the face of it. But initially, you're probably going to be the integrator because they need to be the one who has the finger on the pulse of the business to make sure that things are getting done. What is an integrator's role? So an integrator's role is going to be the person that basically does all the implementation. They spend a lot of time working on the business, right? Creating systems, creating structure, creating procedures. So when we were starting our business, what was interesting is when we first started, I was working day and night tirelessly to try to figure out how to get our name on the map. That was marketing. And then I had to figure out sales. So I had to basically figure out who our target client was. After I figured out who our target client was, we had to start coming up with marketing messages for them. And we had to figure out how to make the phone ring, right? After we got the phone to ring, then we said, okay, now how do we answer the phone? So then I had to work on sales. I had to create sales scripts. I had to understand how to convert them. I had to make sure I brought the money in. So I was very, very busy on the front end. My business partner, Pete, he wasn't as busy because we really didn't have the business coming in yet. So it's kind of like you don't know what systems you need until you're running the systems. So he was busy on the front end I was busy on the front end doing that. He was not so busy. As the business grew and we got a marketing person, that was one of the first people we hired. So in my opinion, one of the first people you should hire is a marketing person, because let's face it, if you cannot figure out how to monetize your business, meaning marketing and sales, you're going out of business. You just don't realize it until your bank account says zero. So you've got to learn how to monetize. The way you learn to monetize is you have to figure out how to make the phone ring. So that was my job. I had to learn to make the phone ring. Once the phone started ringing, okay, we had enough money. We hired a marketing guy. Then we hired a salesperson under me. So I was doing sales all the time. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to hire a salesperson. They make their money off of performance. If they sell, well, they make money. If they don't sell, they don't make money, and you have to get rid of them. So all of a sudden, my job became more of a managerial leadership role to the marketing and to the sales team. Then we started bringing in business. So now he had to start getting busy. He had to start creating systems, structure, procedures for the business that we are bringing in. Every business typically is going to have anywhere between 8 to 11 systems and procedures in their business. So when you think about this, you may have, for example, an inbound call comes in of a new lead. How do you process that? What is the procedure? That's one system. Then the salesperson goes on the meeting to meet the client. That's another. Then you close them, they get handed off from sales to operations. That's another. Then you set the operations. That's another. So these are all ways that you're systematizing the business. So you've got to make sure that you're doing all these things sequentially in the right order so that you can funnel them through. So that's the systems. That's what he had to do. Then next part is accounting. We had to figure out how to make sure, does everybody get paid? How do the customers get paid? How do employees get paid? How do we get paid? How do we make sure that people don't owe us money? And so we learned a lot of terms, cost of goods sold, GAAP, all these different things we had to learn when we were growing our business because we had never done this before. And as we were growing our business, we realized there's a lot of things you have to know. Just having a great product, just having a great concept or idea does not mean that you are going to be successful in what you're doing. It actually means that, yeah, you got a great idea. You may be the visionary, right? Or you may think you know how to do a system better than the person you worked for. So you may be the integrator. But if you don't put them together and you don't realize that you need the visionary and you got to have the integrator and you got to have them together, you're not going to be successful. I mean, so many people die on the vine with their business, not because they're not working hard. Look, I think entrepreneurs are the hardest working people on the planet. It's not that they're not working hard. It's that they don't have a systemizable model that could grow and scale. And the one thing you got to understand is that as you grow, there's going to be a lot of friction and disruption between sales and operations, because if operations doesn't get what they need, again, these are different disc profiles. If they're not getting what they need, they're going to want to kick it back. So we would always have these tug of wars. And yes, we did it for the good of the business, but we also, sales wants to close, right? Because that's what we do. Operations wants to make sure that they're able to fulfill the order. If you can't do that harmoniously, and maybe the salesperson says something that shouldn't have been said, or they offered something that operations didn't know about, now the client's upset. Now you've got this inner turmoil. And what we realized is a lot of the challenges happen between those two barriers, between sales and operations. So again, this is the visionary and the integrator coming together and saying, look, we've got to figure out how to bridge this gap. So that is probably going to be your biggest point of friction in your business when it comes to visionary and integrator, so that you know what do you have to do and how to get it across the goal line, because that's the biggest transition, right? So again, the visionary is going to be the person that's a high level thinker. They're the ones that are creating big relationships. Maybe they're the one on shows, podcasts, speaking at events, networking events, creating marketing strategies, testing and measuring. And then they're doing sales. Now they're making sure that people are buying. And is it the right customer that operations wants? Is it the right acquisition cost? Is it the right marketing strategy cost? All these things come under the auspice of the visionary. The integrator's role is they've got to make sure that everything's processed, everybody knows the operation, so that you can not only get the customer, but you do such a good job that the customer wants to buy again and again and again. So I could have the best sales pitch, but if operations doesn't do their job and they lose the client, it's all for nothing. And as they grow, I learned that as your business grows, one is going to be stressed, one is not. So if sales is killing it, right, operations is going to be stressed, right? Sales is doing good, they're happy. Operations is getting crushed because we're bringing in so many new clients. Other way around, sales is not doing good, operations is stressed because they don't know how they're going to pay the bills. So it's this equilibrium that has to do, and it's the visionary and integrator's role. Now, if you are a one-person show and you don't have that other yin of the yang, the visionary, the integrator, I would suggest that's someone you need. It could be someone on the board of directors for you. It could be someone that owns another business and you said, hey, I just need to bounce ideas off of you. Is it okay if I pick your brain every now and then until you can afford to hire a visionary or an integrator? You could probably get someone and you could probably help them the way they help you, because you're probably going to be opposite. But adding value and offering to help someone and getting them to help you in your business for the opposite role is a great idea. When you're starting out, you don't have the revenue, this is a way to do it. So doing that is a smart way to do it. And again, remember, you got to understand the business has to come first. The one thing I realized when we were growing our business is the business was not me. It was not my DNA. The business had to be a standalone entity, and it needed to survive without me, without my business partner, without the employees. The employees make it better, don't get me wrong. But the reality is a business needs to operate off of systems and structure and data and metrics, not off of one-off. So if you've got this rock star salesperson and all of a sudden they leave, you don't want the business to implode because of that. So you've always got to make sure that when you have these people, it's systems dependent, not people dependent. And that's where the integrator comes in. Salesperson, the visionary may be the one who finds this rock star person, but the reality is the integrator's got to make sure that it's scalable and systemizable to do that. So again, remember, the visionary basically makes the phone ring, the integrator processes it, and they do that through system structure. They bring control from chaos, and they make sure that everyone's processed and procedures. And it's this great balance between the two. You can always tell the visionary and the integrator in a company. They'll be the visionary is normally the one who walks up first to shake your hand, and the integrator's back a little bit. They don't really care for the limelight. They don't care to be on podcast shows. You don't even know who they are. Just like in some of these companies I referenced earlier, you may not even know who they were, but they exist because they're the engine that's actually driving the growth of your business. So if you don't have a visionary or an integrator, I would suggest you get one, and that could be the rocket fuel to your business. So again, those two books, one was called Traction, the other one was called Rocket Fuel, and those were key implementation products for us as we grew our business. So that's it on Visionary and Integrator. If you like this, make sure you subscribe to this channel, share it, give me a review, let me know what you think. And this was High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.